first graders. I found the book that I told you guys about in my last lesson, and it's called Seaman's Journal on the Trail with Lewis and Clark. And so I actually brought some of my own kids in here. They're on the other side of the camera, and they're going to listen to the story too. But I really just thought it would be fun while we're learning about Lewis and Clark to read about their journey in the eyes of the dog that went with them, Seaman. Okay, so I'm going to read it to you, and I hope you love it as much as I've loved it. The first page tells a little bit about Seaman and what kind of dog he is and how he came to be. So it says, a word from Seaman. I'm going to read the front, and I know you might not be able to see the pictures real well, but hopefully you enjoy the story. A word from Seaman. My name is Seaman. I am a male dog from Pennsylvania, and Meriwether Lewis paid $20 for me. I am a Newfoundland. I have 2 coats of fur, a thick, soft undercoat, and a long, silky outer coat so I never get cold. I love water and have big, furry, webbed feet, which makes me an excellent swimmer. I weigh almost 150 pounds. We Newfoundlands love children and are very loyal. I'll protect my master with my life. Here's my story of the greatest adventure a dog ever had, when I followed Lewis and Clark all the way to the Pacific Ocean and back again. And this is a little picture of him at 2 months old. He's a cutie. So, and this book actually is pretty historically accurate, and it's based on real entries from Meriwether Lewis's journal. So it presents an account of the Lewis and Clark expedition or trip from the viewpoint of Lewis's dog. So this is a book about Lewis and Clark's trip using their journal entries in the eyes of a dog. That's pretty cool. Maybe you've seen some movies like that before. Have you guys ever watched, what's a movie that has it's put in the perspective of the animal? Can you think of one? Like A Bug's Life even. Just a story from the perspective of an animal. Those are pretty fun to watch. All right, here we go. Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, August of the year 1803. I have a new master, Captain Meriwether Lewis. We're in Pittsburgh waiting for our keel boat to be built. President Jefferson chose Lewis to be in charge of an expedition called the Corps of Discovery. We're to find a route to the Pacific Ocean, and I'm in charge of Lewis. There he is. He thinks he's the boss of Meriwether Lewis. Lewis and I have been here for the past 9 months. Now they're in Missouri. I've hauled barrels of flour, cornmeal, sugar, salt, coffee, apples, and hard biscuits. Lewis has studied maps and books about fossils, plants, and medicine. We've packed shiny bracelets, scissors, medals, mirrors, army uniforms, hats, and flags to trade with the Indians. Sometimes Lewis and I study the stars all night. Do you know that why they would need to study the stars? What can the stars tell you?
Where to go, like north, south, east.
Absolutely. Do you know of another story or a time when someone used the stars to know where to go? What did we just kind of learn about? Who was the person who used the stars to guide her as she helped people get to freedom?
Tubman.
Harriet Tubman did that. You have to study the stars, and the stars can help you to know which way to go. And also, remember, there were 3 reasons that President Jefferson wanted Lewis and Clark to go out west. And the first one was to see if there was an all-waterway route to the Pacific Ocean, to bring back and find more samples of plants and animals, new plants and animals that they might not have known before, and also to make peace and make friends and give peace gifts to the Native Americans who lived out west. St. Charles, Missouri, May 14th, 1804. Lewis, along with his best friend and co-leader or co-captain, William Clark, 31 men, and I are off. In a pouring rain, we pushed the 55-foot keelboat. A keelboat's just like a flat boat. Okay, nothing fancy. We pushed the 55-foot keelboat and 2 pirogues flat-bottomed dugout canoes into the Missouri River, and we travel upriver and the men push against its strong current. A party of Kickapoos came into our camp. We gave them trinkets. They gave us deer meat. The men were so hungry there was almost nothing left for me. What do you think Kickapoos are? What do you think? A party of Kickapoos came into our camp. We gave them trinkets. They gave us deer meat.
Indians?
Indians, yeah.
Oh.
Most days, Lewis and I walk along the riverbank as Clark steers the keelboat. Often, huge flocks of passenger pigeons block out the sun. Lewis sketches them in his journal while I look out for rattlesnakes. Remember who's telling the story?
The dog.
The dog is. While I was splashing in the muddy river chasing after fish, Lewis fell off a limestone cliff. Luckily, he caught himself on a ledge and was saved. From now on, I'll keep my eye on Captain Lewis. Here they are on their boat. This is kind of what the keelboat and pirogues look like. And then there's Seaman. Is he catching a fish? Is that what he's doing? He's got to watch those men. They can do some dangerous things. At the Kansas and Platte Rivers, June, July 1804. Hey, there are many beavers here. There are also some nasty-tempered badgers. I love to pounce at the prairie dogs or barking squirrels as they pop their heads out of the ground. My favorite animal to chase is the squirrel. When I catch one, I take him to Cook. He is glad to get it. I bet Cook has a capital C, so that's a proper noun. It's probably the name of the person maybe who cooks all their food. Maybe they have a cook with them. They call him Cook. And here's some pictures of those types of animals. We don't really have prairie dogs out here. If you've been to the zoo, you may have seen that, but there's badgers, beavers, and squirrels. And here's the prairie dogs. They pop their heads out. And they are little barking squirrels. We've seen prairie dogs on our trip, and they make, what kind of sound do they make? They do. They're really cute. The Otto and Missouri Indians invited Lewis and Clark to a council meeting where I helped Clark pass out coats, blankets, flags, and medals. Lewis spoke of peace and explained that the French and Spanish had sold the land to a new great father, the President of the United States. Mornings are cooler now, and the geese are flying south. Today we saw our first coyote, or prairie wolf. And I like this because down here on the bottom there's some Indian beadwork. There's a coyote, and then here's some of the Native Americans, a Canadian goose. And because it's getting cooler, they're flying south. What's that called when an animal moves to a warm place? Migration. Yep. Oh, here's one of my favorite animals. We've seen a lot of these on our trip. We heard an Indian legend about the Spirit Mound. The legend says men only 18 inches tall with huge heads live at the mound. Lewis, the men, and I started across the prairie. It was so hot that Lewis sent me back, but the men walked for 3 hours before reaching the mound. They saw no men, but buffalo covered the prairie. I spent the afternoon lying in the cool riverbank. A hot, dry prairie is no place for a Newfoundland. And here they're on the plains of the Dakota, September 1804. I trail Lewis up steep hills and down deep valleys. We've seen bobcat, elk, buffalo, and antelope. I chased the antelope and took one to Cook. One day we counted 36 bald eagles soaring above our heads. That's one of my favorite animals right there. The bison.
The elk.
Elk.
Bison.
Bobcat. Those are some good ones. I can't believe Seaman must have been pretty fast to catch an antelope because those are very fast animals. Oh, here's one of my favorite plants, a prickly pear cactus. We don't see those often either, but they have beautiful blooms. And actually, when we were out west, you remember we ate one of the fruit from a prickly pear cactus. Beautiful, ripe, purple, hot pink inside. It's pretty good. What did y'all?
Like a plum.
Like a plum?
Banana.
A banana. Yep, those were good.
Banana.
off Teton River in September of 1804. We named this river Teton River, but the Teton Sioux call it Bad River. The only thing bad are the manners of the Sioux. They carried my master on a painted buffalo robe to their camp. They placed him on a white buffalo skin where he smoked the peace pipe with the council chiefs. When we started toward our boat to leave, the Sioux grabbed the boat's rope to stop us. They wanted tobacco and our pirogue. What's a pirogue? You remember? There's a keelboat and a pirogue.
A flat boat?
Like a flat boat with a carved out, kind of like a canoe on the inside. When Lewis threw tobacco at the chief, they let us go. I was glad to get away. The Sioux Indians eat. Why do you think he was glad to get away? What do you think
Dogs.
they eat? They eat dogs. Yep. Now they're in the village of the Arikaras in October. The Arikaras are farmers and shared beans, corn, and squash, which can also be referred to as the three what? Beans, corn, and squash can be referred to as
The three sisters.
the three sisters because they grow real well together, those three. Beans, corn, and squash. The men were glad for the vegetables, but this is not food for Seaman. The Arikara's children played games with Clark's servant, York. He pretended he was a lion and roared at them. They pretended they were scared and ran away. I pretended I was on guard and I barked. What fun we had. So here's the tobacco. They would sit around and smoke tobacco. Look at that beautiful headdress of this Indian chief. They were on the Teton River, and here's a pipe and a tomahawk, some beautiful Indian jewelry. And this is York. And he was the servant who went with them and helped them, and they were playing together, and we can see that there's pumpkins and corns and the things that they're growing. Oops. Now it's in November. It's very cold. My fur keeps me warm, but the men suffer. We've met the Mandan and the Hidatsa tribes. Both are peaceful farmers. The men have built a camp and named it in honor of the Mandans. A French-Canadian fur trader named Toussaint Charbonneau came into camp, and Lewis hired him as an interpreter and cook. And we know the word interpreter means you're trying to translate one language to another. Keep your body still so you don't shake our camera. His Shoshone wife, Sacagawea, is about 14, and her name means bird girl. Charbonneau is a good cook and shares his meat with me. So far they're meeting pretty peaceful Indians for the most part. Now they're in Fort Mandan, December. This is Christmas date, 1804. We had a Christmas party. The men played tambourines, fiddles, and trumpets. Even the Mandans danced, and we all had a great time. The snow is very deep. The men hunt deer and rabbit for food, and they hollow out trunks of cottonwood trees and make canoes. Often Lewis and I visit the Mandans and Hidatsas who live close by. They tell him about the route over the mountains, and Lewis writes it all down in his journal. And here's a picture of them celebrating Christmas. Make their fire, have deep snow. There's the boats that they're making during this time. February 1805, Fort Mandan. I help Sacagawea dig roots to eat. She also gathers plants for medicine. One day she made pemmican and gave me a piece. I ate the dried meat in it, but spit out the nuts and berries. Phewy. Sacagawea is a mom now, and I have a baby to watch over. She named her baby Jean-Baptiste Charbonneau. Clark calls him Pompey, or Pomp. Will he call me Uncle Seaman? Now they're on the Missouri River in April 1805. While we camped, the men made pets of buffalo calves and a litter of wolf pups. Can you sit up for me? Sit real still. My master sent a progress report to President Jefferson. He also sent mountain sheep horns, buffalo skins, Indian gifts, bleached skulls, 4 live magpies, and a prairie dog. We're traveling the river again. 31 men, 1 woman, a baby, and 1 Newfoundland who is glad to be rid of those pesky magpies. Seaman, I think, is excited to be helping watch over Sacagawea's baby. So they're sending all of these things back to President Thomas Jefferson kind of as a check-in. Let him know what they're finding. At the mouth of the Yellowstone River in May of 1805. I love Yellowstone. It's a beautiful place to go, visit, and study. So many buffalo, antelope, and elk roam here. One day, 2 grizzly bears attacked us. Lewis shot and wounded one. He ran away, but the other chased us until Lewis shot him. The grizzly's paws were 11 inches wide with 7-inch claws. 11 inches is almost a whole ruler, or 12 inches is a ruler, a foot. A grizzly's paws were 11 inches wide with 7-inch claws. Man, he needs his toenails clipped. What does he use those claws for, though? Why does the grizzly bear?
For scratching and climbing
Yeah,
trees.
absolutely. Lots of reasons. Those are one of the adaptations he has to survive out in the wild. Then a mean old beaver bit my leg. I bled so much that Lewis thought I'd die, but my master saved me. I can't die. I have an expedition to guard. Sacagawea is a hero. Lewis and I were walking along the water's edge while the rest of the men were in the canoes and pirogues. The wind came up, the sky turned black, lightning flashed, thunder roared, and the river began to churn. Charbonneau was in the lead boat with most of our supplies, but he lost control, and the gear all went overboard. Sacagawea held Pomp with one hand while with her other she scooped out all that she could reach. My master's heartbroken. His journal was lost. But my journal did not even get damp. Did he have a journal? How can a dog have a journal? Terrible, terrible storm. Look at that big old grizzly bear. If you get a chance, you should study Yellowstone. It is a cool place to visit.
How long was the grizzly bear big?
His paws were 11 inches wide, 11 inches across, and his claws were 7 inches long. All right, into May 1805. I'm a hero too, says Seaman. Last night, while all the men were asleep, I heard a noise. Suddenly, a gigantic buffalo charged into the camp, straight for Lewis's tent. I barked out, "Woof!" That buffalo turned around and headed back to where he came from, and Lewis called me his brave dog. As Lewis and I walked near the river we named for President Jefferson, as we walked near the river we named for President Jefferson, which was the Missouri River, we found the source of the Missouri River. We drank from the small trickle of icy water that bubbled out of the ground. Now we know there will be no river route all the way to the Pacific Ocean. We will have to walk or ride horses over the Bitterroot Mountains, which we named for a bitter-tasting plant. Okay, so they found the source of the Missouri River, which was a little trickle, which means the number one thing that President Thomas Jefferson wanted to know from them was there a waterway route all the way to the Pacific Ocean? So was there? Mm-mm. There was not. So they were going to have to kind of walk the rest of the way. All right, I'm going to pause there, and maybe I'll read the rest next time and finish up a video for it. There's not too much left, but I'll put a bookmark in, and I hope you loved the start of that book. Did you guys like that? Yes. It's kind of fun to hear about a story from an animal's perspective. Yeah, because animals experience everything a little bit differently. So we've heard a lot of things that really correlate with what we've been learning about Lewis and Clark and Thomas Jefferson. So I hope you're loving it. I've got a little bit more where that came from. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye, first graders.